Let's take a moment to talk about our DBX drive rack. This drive rack is the Venu 360. It's 3 in and 6 out. So if we look at our inputs and outputs, 3 in, so these are going to be 3 analog or digital in, and then this is going to be our 6 outputs. We have a utility screen with plenty of knobs and dials. Everything that we need to, we can operate this entire system from this front of the panel, but I prefer to use the app. So let's dive into the app and get this sound system tuned to the natural acoustics of the room. Every room is going to have natural acoustics, good or bad. And when we put a sound system in the room, we're going to be exciting all the acoustics, not to mention all the different microphones that may color the sound, all the different voices. We may have really muddy, harsh, nasally, a honky sound, quiet, shy, timid, whatever. Okay, you get the point. We need to make sure our sound system is not going to fight the acoustics of the room. The drive rack has been a game changer for me. What used to be thousands and thousands of dollars of processing equipment is now in one rack unit for a fraction of the price. So as I said before, we got an app that we're going to work with. So this app is going to be on the Apple iPad. It's on different platforms as well. So I got a password on this. Let's get dialed in and look at the drive rack. Okay, we are in the drive rack. This is the app looking at the Venu 360. And if I mute an output here, you can actually see that mute light up there. So it's a very quick response. We are going to set this drive rack up as a new system. The DBX people have wizards that will walk us right through it. Most of the time I don't do wizards. Most of my setups are going to be a lot more complicated, a lot more involved in customizing. So the best spot to start is going to be Run System Setup Wizard. Okay, this wizard's going to overwrite the settings that we have on right here, and that is fine. Okay, so start from default settings. Yes. Okay, so we'll be starting from factory default. What are we going to do? PA system, stage monitors, PA system, and stage monitors. I like to set this up in a typical church as PA and stage monitors. So we're going to select PA and stage. We're going to hit stereo. We got mono or left, center, right stereo. And then we're going to talk about the inputs. Are they going to be analog or are they going to be the digital? So we're going to do the left PA input is going to be analog 1. The right PA input will be analog 2. And then the people at Harman have modeling for speakers in here. The speakers that we are using are not modeled yet, so we're going to do not listed. Hit next. They are full range speakers. And then we are not using subwoofers with this particular install. Now we have the same option to find the tunings of our amp. The amp that we are using is not listed, so we're going to hit not listed. We're going to hit next. Now we're going to talk about our monitor speakers. For right now, we're not going to set up the monitor side of things. That's not available yet, so we're just going to hit not listed, but I want to have the routing already completed in case if we want to add floor monitors at a later time. The floor monitors will be full range, so we'll hit next on that, and then we're going to say no, we're not doing another monitor. Same thing, our monitor amp. The ones that we are using are not listed, so we're going to hit not listed and next. Our input is going to be analog. Let's see here, we'll do analog 3 for the input. Apply the current, and we say yes to that. So that is going to set up our routing for how the signal gets in to the drive rack and then how the signal gets out. We'll be able to do a left and a right, so that's going to be 1 and 2 on the inputs, and then we'll have a floor monitor for a input 3. So there it is right there, analog 1, which is going to be left, analog 2 input, which is going to be right, and then analog 3, which will be a monitor. Input and output. Okay, so let's go to the next wizard. We are going to do the auto EQ. When I hit that button, the relay just muted all of the inputs and the outputs. That is because we are now going to be running sound through the analyzer mic. So I have a 75-foot cord plugged in. These are red or yellow, plugged straight into the drive rack itself. And here is our analyzer mic. This is made by DBX, and this is designed to be a very flat sounding mic and work with the drive racks. So we are going to work on the tuning of our house speakers. So that is going to be auto EQ 1, and we're going to do a auto EQ only. So in this shop here, I have two speakers on the wall representing a left and a right. So we are going to tune this system to work with the acoustics of my shop using those speakers and then using this flat mic. Okay, so we're going to do the auto EQ only. We got three options. We got a recommended curve, we got a flat, and we got a reflective room. I usually like to start with the recommended curve in doing the wizards, but if we got a really reflective room, more like a gymnasium or really hard surfaces, we'll actually hit here, and that will attenuate the higher frequencies. But we're going to go with recommended curve. We're going to hit next. So right here, it's going to show us how we are going to tune and where we're going to place the mic. So we're just going to stand kind of right center of the mic, center of the speakers, and we're going to get a sample volume to make sure that this can hear the sound coming through the speakers. Okay, we got that. Sometimes if the background noise is too high, you'll hear the sine sweep through the speakers get louder and louder and louder, or it may say background noise is too loud. We got the option to do 2, 3, or 4 sweeps. So what we're going to do is we're going to sample the acoustics of this room in 4 different spots. So the more samples, the better. So I'm going to do number 4. Now it's going to ask me to stand center, and I'm typically going to be back. So if we are 15 feet from speaker to speaker, I need to be about 15 feet. I want to make a perfect triangle if I can for our starting spot. In this shop, obviously I'm not 15 feet away, but in the install application, I would try to make a perfect triangle for my first measurement. Okay, so I was pointing at it. It's going to do 2 sine sweeps. We're going to do a sine sweep on the left, and we're going to do a sine sweep on the right. Now, I'm going to take another position, another measurement from a different position. So I'm going to come up into this area. So that way I'm a little bit closer to this speaker, a little bit further away from the speaker. Now, in this shop, it's rather full. So we are going to kind of guess. So sweep number 2. Okay, sweep number 3. So we're going to come back from our first measurement point, and if we want to get really specific, we're going to do thirds. So if we were 15 feet here, we're going to make a perfectly triangle, whatever the correct term is. Isosceles, I think is what it is, where all 3 sides are equal. Then our first measurement, diagonal forward, is going to be a third of that measurement, and then we're going to come back and do a third back off of center, and then our fourth measurement we'll do a third back off of that, so it'll be 2/3 back from our center point. Again, I don't have that luxury in this shop, so I'm going to assume that I am 1/3 back diagonally from that center point. Let's do sweep number 3. Okay, and we got sweep number 4. One final note, make sure that we don't have any handling noise if we're holding these mics. Sometimes it's best to put it on a microphone stand and step away from it, and then you can do your sweep. And then what that sine sweep is doing, it is exciting all the frequencies independently that would be coming through our speakers into the room. So our final sweep from our center point, I am now 2/3 back of that distance to that center. I'm now 2/3 of that distance back in this corner. Okay, background noise is too loud. I'm getting a little bit closer to the amplifier. So we're going to try it louder with an increased test tone, increased test signal level. Again, we are a little bit too noisy. Let's try it again. There is a refrigerator that's below this table that just kicked on. Okay, one more time. You can tell it got louder. Okay, we got all 4 of our measurements. Now the drive rack is going to take those 4 samples, and it knows approximately where I've been within the relation to the speakers in the room. So it's going to now calculate those 4 samples, and it's going to show me the EQ curve of the room and then the EQ curve of the speakers. So the room is represented in gray. Our yellow, which is that target line that we talked about, we had the option to do a normal or a flat or a reflected room, and then the green is going to be the result or the combination of the room with the speakers. If we look at this graph, middle C on the piano, 261, so right there, 80 hertz, 2K, so our piano is going to go from about 24 hertz up to about 4,400 hertz, so right about there. That's the range of the piano right there, okay? So the gray is the room, the yellow is what we're looking for, and then the green is the result. So we'll take off the target, we'll take off the room, and you can see the tuning that drive rack did. There's a couple issues that I have with the tuning, and we're going to adjust those real soon. Okay, so we are not going to tune another input, which would be our floor monitors, because we're not doing floor monitors at this point. So we are going to come back to our mixing location, and we're now going to do the automatic feedback suppression. That's going to be called the AFS, and there is a wizard for that, okay? So I'm going to come back to this drive rack. Let me turn those lights off, and I need to unmute all of the outputs, okay? If anything's lit up red, it's not going to pass audio. So everything is now unmuted. AFS1 is going to be our house. So let me hit next. So what AFS is, automatic feedback suppression. In the analog world, we would call that notch filters or very narrow band equalization. What that does is that targets very specifically the frequencies that are going to cause feedback. So if we can put a notch or a cut in those frequencies, and I'll show you what it's going to do on the chart, if we can notch those out, that means we're going to be able to get our volume louder and have more gain, acoustic gain, before feedback. So we got a microphone right here, and I'll walk you through that. So we're going to hit next right here. Any noise gates, we need to bypass those, compressors, etc., etc. We got our mixers, faders lowered. Now I'm going to hit next. It's going to offer me the option to do the default 6. I'm going to hit no, and in a typical setup, I like to do, let me back that up. I think I skipped over that. Yeah, okay. So in a typical setup, I like to do 10 filters. So we got the option 10 here. So we'll have 10 fixed and 2 live. We'll explain that at the end of this graph. We have the option to do 3 different notches, really narrow, a little bit wider, or wider here. I like to try to do music and a speech. It's in between the two, so it's not as wide or narrow as that. So we're going to slowly bring our microphone into feedback, and you'll see this notch itself out. Now, in the typical install, this is going to be up on the stage area. We're going to have our pulpit mic or our podium mic. Our lapel mic's going to be up there, and we're going to ring them from up there. They're going to cause different feedback than back in this location, but for this demonstration, I am ringing it from here. Okay, so I'm going to bring the system into feedback. So we'll get that plugged in there. So let's pretend this is our pulpit mic up front. No, we are not done. I'm going to slowly bring it into feedback, and you'll see frequencies right here start to ring, and the drive rack will notch them out. I'm turning up the gain. bringing the system into feedback. Slowly. So there's our first frequency there. A little bit lower. Sorry, a little bit higher. Okay, so we're on filter number 4. That was the lower one I was talking about. Okay, so we have now 5 notches on this microphone. This microphone can now get louder in the room because these frequencies that would have caused feedback first are now attenuated by about 5 decibels. Remember, when we look at graphs like this, low, mids, highs. Middle C on the piano is 261, 1K, 2K, 5K, on and on, okay? So we got 5 notches on. Let's call this our pulpit mic or our podium mic. So now let's come on over to our lapel mic. So let's now put 5 notches on our lapel mic. I'm gonna bring the fader up. If I have no feedback, I'm gonna bring up the gain. Slowly bring it into feedback. This one's going to get bigger. Oh, sorry, I was right above that. Got 2 more to go. 9 and 10. Getting another thing right there. Okay, so now we have put 10 notches in our system. It's going to show you right here the frequencies and then the amount of gain we attenuated and then how tight the Q is. The Q is just a measurement of how wide or narrow the notch is going to be. So most of these notches are extremely tight, which is good. We're not going to be taking out neighboring frequencies. So we got fixed, which means these filters will never change, but now we have 2 live filters. So if we ever go into feedback with a different mic, or let's say we change our pulpit mic and it's just a little bit different, we can actually bring it into feedback actually live and it will notch out those 2. So we're going to hit next. Set up another automatic feedback suppression. Nope, because we're not doing floor monitors at this time. So our wizard is complete. We're going to hit home, and now we really get to see all the different modules of our drive rack. This is our input section, and this is going to be our output section. So we're coming in 1 and 2, which is going to be our left and right, our yellow and our red. 1 and 2, automatic feedback suppression. We got graphic EQs, we got subs, and we can change any of these modules to meet our specific applications. Then here's our output section. So our auto EQ, we've got a compressor and a crossover. So off camera, I actually set the turned on these so where we could set them a little bit quicker. So we're going to roll this with these particular speakers. We're going to do a high pass at 80 Hertz. So now I'm going to just kind of dial it into 80. I'm a little bit more accurate right here. This is going to be another high pass filter, HP or LP, which is a low pass, which would take us off the high end. Again, remember when we look at these charts, lows, mids, highs. The speakers that we're putting in have 8-inch woofers. They're not going to be able to handle those extremely low frequencies. So we're going to aggressively roll that off. That way we won't over-extenuate the woofers and then blow them out of their surrounds. So that's going to be on our crossover. Our compressor we have turned on. That's just going to help smooth out some of the louder frequencies. So we're going to take the threshold and we're going to drop it down to 15. Now that's as close as I'm going to get to 15. And we got it, we got the auto off. Sorry, auto is turned on. And then we're going to take our over easy, and you can watch what I do on this graph here. We're going to take our over easy to 5. I'm just going to kind of make this not quite as harsh as when the compressor kicks in. So the compressor is going to kind of squash down some of those louder tones or volumes, and it's going to allow the softers to come through a little bit easier. It'd be more like cruise control for your sound system. Okay, so now we've got our compressor set. Everything else is going to stay the same for now. There's a lot that we could do with this drive rack. Venu 360, but this is where we're going to start with. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here to the store button, and we're going to hit store. And then if we want, we can change the name, but for now, I'm not going to. I'm going to hit store again, store preset right here, number 1, and I'm going to hit store again, and now we are stored. So you have to hit store 3 times to store this whole program. Okay, so right there it's showing what we're doing on the iPad, only the iPad's a little bit easier to look at. At any time, if you see any of these outputs or inputs muted, you're not going to pass audio. One of the things I've seen with the Driverack PA2s, especially after electrical storms, a lot of lightning or power surges, you'll turn your sound system on and all of your outputs will be muted along with your inputs. So if you're not passing audio through your sound system, you want to look right here at your inputs and your outputs. So that is how we use the Driverack Venu 360 to tune our sound system to work with the natural acoustics of the room. Now that's just a very basic beginning tuning. As we progress in the install and then also of the use of the system, we may need to come back and visit some of these tunings. Well, actually, we'll just jump in one more time and I'll show you something that we're not gonna allow right now. So number 8. For the speakers that we're installing at 41 hertz, we're going to be asking the speakers to handle 6 dB of gain. They're not going to do that, so we're just going to roll them off to 0. Number 2, that's at 52 hertz, so we're going to bring that back down to 0 as well. So this is a computer using algorithms to make these adjustments, but they are not our human ears. They don't know what style of music or speech that we're going to be putting through. So we may need to manipulate this a little bit. That's okay. This just gives us a great spot to start from. Okay, so now I just made a change. So I'm going to come back down here to store, and I'm going to hit store 3 times. Boom, red light goes off. We are stored on the Driverack. Something that we may want to do once we get our tuning done is we may want to take this program and actually store this on our mobile device. If I hit those 3 buttons or those 3 lines right there, this is presets in the devices, and these are going to be presets that I have stored on my Driverack or stored on my iPad. So these would be different Driveracks that I have set up that I have stored in here. So that is a quick rundown of the Driverack DBX Venu 360.